Our next inductee was born in Pensacola in 1912, turning professional in 1932. He's remembered as one of the top welterweights and middleweights of his era. Among the champions that he swapped punches with included Archie Moore, Marcel Cerdan, and the Raging Bull, Jake LaMotta. He may be best remembered as a stablemate and sparring partner for heavyweight champion Joe Louis. In 1941, when Louis was in the middle of his so-called Bum of the Month tour, he was credited by Louis himself for being the first person to teach Louis how to box. He finished with a career amazing, 186 pro bouts, 145 wins, 30 losses, 11 draws, 35 wins by way of knockout. He passed away in 1967. He was elected to the World Boxing Hall of Fame in 1996. He was voted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 2008. It is my honor to welcome to the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame class of 2011, welterweight and middleweight contender, Holman Williams. Accepting for Holman Williams, the author of the Holman Williams book and many others, Mr. Don Cogswell.
A few years ago, my co-author, J.J. Johnston, and I decided to write a book called Uncrowned Champions. And we picked out 10 great prize fighters that had never gotten a shot at a title. Among those 10 was Holman Williams. We're both members of the International Boxing Research Organization. That's what these letters stand for. It's not a new boxing organization. We have no titles. And we, in Ibro, we couldn't hold Holman Williams in higher esteem. A terrific boxer. He fought them all. Size didn't seem to matter. He went as high up as fighting some of the light heavyweights, middleweights, welterweights. Started as a lightweight. Scored a lot of knockouts early. As he went up in weight and had hand trouble, he adjusted. This was a guy that really stressed technique. Came out of the Brewster gym in Detroit. We had moved north from Florida. And he was a giver from the very beginning. As a young pro, when he had his career, you would think his career would have taken up all his time, and yet he instructed the amateurs in the gym. One of those, as mentioned in the opening remarks, was Joe Louis. Initially, Holman had no interest in Louis. Louis couldn't hold his hands up. He was a strong guy, but he was just taking a pasting. One night he watched him fight Johnny Myler. Johnny Myler went on to be on the U.S. Olympic team. He was an outstanding amateur. He knocked Joe Louis down 9 times in a 3-round fight. But Louis ended up on his feet. And that's when Holman said, I gotta help this guy. So years later, Joe Louis would say that it was Holman Williams that taught me how to keep up my hands. He was on a lot of Joe Louis undercards over the years. He gave him some special preparation for Billy Conn. He fought earlier in the night and was on the edge of his seat when Louis was struggling with Conn and finally caught up to him. But Holman was more than just a great fighter. He was the giver, as I mentioned. He was also a guy that liked a good time. When he'd go to a venue in New Orleans, he fell in love with the town. He'd stay a couple of days, and in the words of my co-author, he'd cabaret, which I thought was a noun. Same thing would go for Paris. Terrific, terrific fighter. It is such an honor for me to be here for this event. I thank Butch and Kathy Flansburgh and the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame. Holman Williams, a crown champion in Florida.